In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Today I want to talk about linguistic universals and linguistic parameters. Well, if in order for you to understand the nature of universals, you have to, in fact, read the first lines of page 20, okay? Linguistic universals. Well, the book says, let us now consider the notion of a linguistic universal a little more closely, okay? One might think that something that is universal should be present in all linguistic systems. Let us see, okay? Well, in order for you to understand, just go to sentence 29 on page 20. And the sentence is like this. Mike knows Bert. Mike knows Bert. Okay. What is the difference between 29 and now 30? Okay. Who does Mike know? What is the difference? You could say that a sentence like 29 is not question, but 30 is question, okay? How do we make it with question? We change, in fact, Bert, which is the object of the sentence, to who and put it at the beginning of the sentence. So it is something like Mike knows Bert. So, and now the result is now something like who does Mike know? If you want to understand the nature of it, you have to go to sentence 31 to see what happens. If you actually look at sentence 31, you see that at the end of the sentence, there is something like an object, which is Bert, but we don't know Bert. So, Bert actually is nothing but who, because we don't know, okay? So we don't know Bert, so we put it instead of Bert, we change it to who. Now, there's one thing more. We put it to the beginning of the sentence. The result is something like, who does Mike know? What do you see here? In sentence 29, 30, and 31, we see when in English we want to make something like a question with the WH word, we in fact move the question element to the beginning of the sentence. We put the question element to the beginning of the sentence. Okay? So there is something called movement in English. But let us go to other languages. Do we need movement or not? Do we need move or movement or not in other languages? Let us go to page 21, and the example is Japanese. Okay, look at the sentence 32 on page 21. The sentence is something like this, and I don't know Japanese. It is something like this. Niwa wa soko desu. Niwa wa soko desu. What does it mean? The literal translation is one line below it. Garden, there is. This is the literal translation. What does the sentence mean? The sentence means the garden is there. The garden is there. Okay? So, this is not a question sentence in Japanese. Now let us look at sentence 32 below it on page 21. Look. Niwawa doko desu ka. What does it mean? Garden. Where is? There's at the end of the sentence, there's something like a ka at the end of the sentence or ka at the end of the sentence. What does it mean? It means, where is the garden? There's a difference between Japanese and English. In Japanese, there is no movement. Okay? Ka appears at the end of the sentence. What is ka? Ka is something like aya in Farsi and something like hal in Arabic. Hal. Okay? Where does it appear in Japanese? It appears at the end of the sentence. So, what is the difference between sentences like 29, 30, and 31 on the one side and sentence 32 on the other? And 33. We see that in sentences 29, 30, and 31, there is movement in English. But if we compare it with 32 and 33, we see that in Japanese, there is no movement. Maybe the idea is that movement is not universal. One language needs it, another does not. Well, if I actually go to, in fact, your Arabic, again, there are sentences for you to listen to. Well, if you actually look at sentence 29 and change it into Arabic, it is something like Mike يعرف برد. Mike يعرف برد. Okay? When you want to make it as send a question out of it, you could say something like من يعرف مايك. من يعرف مايك. Okay? So, if you actually see, well, man appears to the beginning of the sentence. Man appears to the beginning of the sentence. It is like English. It is like English. Okay? Well, so a language might be like English or not like English. Okay? Man ya'rifu maik is like English. Why? Because man appears in the beginning of the sentence. Okay? Well, if you actually go to page 21, it is something like this. Well, in Fusha, we could say أين الحديقة. أين الحديقة. أين الحديقة. أين appears to the beginning of the sentence. Okay? Can we say الحديقة عين بالفصحى بالفصحى بالفصحى. Okay? الحديقة عين. Well, so you see, Arabic is something like moving the element to the beginning of the sentence. But the same thing in Farsi. No, we cannot have aina in anywhere in the sentence. Okay? Anywhere. So, baq in Farsi is al-hadiqa. And kujast فصحى فارسی. کجاست colloquial Farsi. Okay? باغ کجاست. We can in Farsi say Hassan کجاست. Where is Hassan? Okay? So we can, but in Farsi we can put it anywhere in the sentence. Say کجاست Hassan. It is right. کجاست Hassan. It is right. What does it mean? It means, where is Hassan? أين الحسن? Okay? So the book comes to the conclusion something like this. In one language, there might be something like movement, like English. In another language, there might be no movement, like Farsi, like Japanese, and maybe Arabic. I don't know exactly the nature of Arabic, but I think that in Arabic it is possible. Actually, I said that it is impossible, but I think it is possible for Arabic to have a WH anywhere in the sentence. Okay, maybe I don't know. الحديقة هنا is right. الحديقة هنا is right. Okay, so the book comes to the conclusion that, again, I'm repeating, for some languages there is movement, for others there is no. So is it a universal? The book says that, well, if you actually go to page 21, it is the conclusion. And line 1 after 34, it is something like this. The presence or absence of syntactic movement is then a parameter of variation. It is not universal. It is not universal. One language, like English, needs movement. Another language does not need it. Okay? So, can you have examples with your own language with very simple sentences? Very simple sentences. To put a WH like where, why, how, etc. somewhere inside the sentence, not at the beginning? If yes, Arabic does not need movement. If no, Arabic needs movement. Why? Because these WH elements must appear to the beginning of the sentence. But for now, we come to the conclusion that maybe a language needs it, maybe a language does not need it. Maybe a language needs it, maybe a language does not need it. So, movement is not universal. What is it then? It is a parameter. So, if it is a parameter, it means that one language, in one language it is present, in another language it is absent. So, this is an example of parameter, not principle. Thank you very much. Well, actually, I didn't have a look at sentence 34, which is, in fact, a sentence from another language in Bahasa in Malaysia, okay? 34 is like that. But if you actually look at the sentence, you see that Dayanak pergi ke Kuala Lumpur ka. This ka at the end, K-A-H at the end, is something like hal in Arabic, like aya in Farsi, something like whether or if in English, but actually in this language and in Japanese, they put this element to the end of the sentence. It's like Arabic. Hal in Arabic appears at the beginning of the sentence. So far, so good. We say that. Again, I'm repeating for a second, third time, a third time, or a fourth time. Movement is not universal. It is a parameter. Thank you very much.